Okay, looks like we're getting some people into the space. Hopefully the main account will be joining as well soon. Without further ado, let's start with the questions and introductions. My name is Vadim. I'm in charge of basically business development and all the communications here at StealthEX. And today I'm pleased to host Craig Antochi, who is a developer relations lead and communications manager for Lukso. Can you please introduce yourself, kind of give a few words about your role at the project and the project itself?
Yeah, happy to do so. Thanks for having me today. My name is Craig Antochi. I'm in the community known as Etholorean. Been around for a long time now. Currently, I'm the developer relations lead at Universal Everything, as well as the communications manager across Universal Everything and Fancy, which is the foundation for the new creative economies, Swiss foundation in charge of managing the network growth. That is for the Lukso network, because that is the layer 1 EVM that I kind of work for, and that this community is trying to grow. So that is, I think, where we'll stop the introduction here for me. And then as the AMA goes on here, I'm sure I'll give you a lot more information about Lukso and what our value proposition is.
Fascinating. Well, just for the new people here, we'll go over the format. We will go over the pre-picked questions. We have about 10 of those. Then we'll open up the chat for the live ones. The whole thing should be about 1 hour, give or take. And for those who will be missing today's session, we will be posting recaps, both text and voice. So none of the information will be lost. Well, without further ado, let's dive into the questions. The first one, I have not seen this question in a while because everyone is using AI, but this one is the best. Can you list 1 to 3 killer features of this project that makes it ahead of its competitors? What is the competitive advantage your project has that you feel the most confident about? Oh, looks like Craig here. Yeah, you're back.
Perfect. I've clicked the wrong button and then rubbed you. You're in the middle of the question here. If maybe you could restate the question. I'm so sorry.
Yes, absolutely. No worries. Trust me, I've been hosting spaces and AMAs for over, 4 years. At this point, I don't think I've ever had a session where it goes without hiccups, technical stuff wise. Elon, one day I hope he'll fix it. But anyways, let's go ahead and restate the question once again. Can you list 1 to 3 killer features of this project that makes it ahead of its competitors? What is the competitive advantage your project has that you feel most confident about?
Okay, yeah. No, I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, so absolutely. Okay, so Lukso as a network stands out because we reimagine Web3 really from the ground up. Not just as a financial layer, but really as a social, creative, and identity-driven ecosystem. And here, I guess I'll give you a couple key features that really set it apart. Number one, that is the universal profile. The universal profile sits at the foundational layer for our ecosystem, and the universal profile are smart contract-based accounts built on the ERC 725 standards. And as smart contract accounts, they replace primitive EOA wallets. They support modular identity, metadata, permissions, and extensions like digital assets, and even embedded apps in Universal Everything, which you can talk about after. This really turns every user into a brand, and it allows for composable on-chain experiences. Really allows a user to have a composable on-chain identity and act as an entity. These universal profiles serve as really the foundation for this social blockchain and ecosystem that we're trying to build. We're really focused on building an ecosystem for everyone and not just financial speculation. Economy has to be part of cryptocurrency and blockchain, but we're really focused on making the profile important to the user. Second killer advantage we have is really new standards reimagined from the ground up. These LSPs, Lukso standard proposals, operate similarly to the ERCs, which would be the Ethereum request for comments, or really how developers and the chain should interact with the chain. Let's say how developers should interact with the chain, and then best practices for these smart contracts for users to interact with the blockchain. So the LSPs really, again, they stem from the ERC 725 standard, which is at its core a metadata standard. Unlike legacy chains, which are literally limited by a kind of token-centric model, the LSP standards start directly from a profile-centric model where the data stored about the profile allows for reputation to be built and a much richer experience. You'll see that in our NFTs. You'll see that in our marketplaces. You'll see that in our DEXs. All of this stems around these new reimagined standards. Really, let's say we learned from the limitations that exist out in the legacy space, and we're trying to provide a new playground for developers and users to come experience blockchain as it really, let's say, should be. And then lastly, I'll say a competitive advantage we have is we know the standards. So the largest window into the standards we have right now is Universal Everything. UniversalEverything.io is the website. That's kind of Luxo's current social operating system. It's the biggest window into the new standards that we have. It's not just a D app. It's actually a full interface where you as a user can explore identities, build and use mini apps. We have messaging between universal profiles there, and really it allows users just to collaborate directly through their profile. Each up really becomes its own interactive app, enabling a social layer for Web3 that's fully on-chain and cross-functional. So I would say those three things I want to mention here, really, to sum it up, we're building the first chain that treats identity, not tokens, as that foundational layer. And that shifts the paradigm from speculation to creation, from wallets to people. And because we control the full stack, it's an L1. We have new standards and we're building interfaces for it. We can move faster and innovate deeper than ecosystems that are locked into the constraints of the token-centric model, really those legacy constraints. So I think that's the answer that I'd give you.
Fascinating. Always love to hear a very clear use case behind the technology, because very often we see those kind of layers, chains, assets that don't really have, a use case, right? And it's really nice to see when the project goes into space with the use case being it's primarily, idea behind, not just the financial speculations and speculative value. And also layer ones, we don't see too many of those these days. Everyone is trying to take an easy way around and just build on L2. Awesome. Let's continue on with the questions. How does Lukso contribute to empowering creators and artists through its platform? What role do you see Lukso playing in shaping the future of the creative economy?
Okay. Lukso is at its core designed from the ground up to empower creators. And that's not just by giving them the tools that they need, but also re-architecting how creators interact with their communities. So it's re-architecting how ownership, identity, and interaction with the people that they're involved with come together to form a more expressive Web3. So, we've got true ownership via universal profiles where artists can create a verifiable on-chain identity with their universal profile, and that carries their full creative history with them. So as an artist, there's a clear link between you, the creator, and the digital assets that you create. This is done through metadata and, again, the ERC 725, which sits as the foundation of the ecosystem. So there's no more starting over across platforms or losing your following as you kind of move through your digital life. Instead, regardless of where you go on the Lukso network, your following can come with you and your creative history can go with you. That's your universal portfolio, your reputation, or your storefront, which is really important. The standards, the LSPs, they're creator centric. So just looking at the reimagined token standards we have, like LSP 7 and 8, if you're not familiar with our ecosystem, LSP 7 can operate akin to the ERC 20, the simple ERC 20 token that can be very fungible. It can also act as an NFT in a very data-rich environment. The LSP8, it would operate more akin to the ERC 721, but I don't want to make those direct links because that would be selling these new token standards short. Really, these new token standards, they're programmable, they're upgradable, and they're metadata rich. That means the NFTs here and the tokens can evolve, react, and you can embed functionality as a creator that can enable dynamic art or dynamic experiences for the collectors or the holders of your token. They can unlock content, royalties, or even social interactions tied to the creations. So again, these LSP standards, they are reimagined and they're meant to be more expressive. And I guess, lastly, mini apps, which we have as embedded experiences within the grid, which it actually sits below your universal profile on universal everything. There, creators can turn their profiles into interactive apps. You can sell your art directly from your universal profile. You can use it as your homepage. You can use it as a link tree on steroids. You can host an exhibition there. You can mint your collections from there. You can engage your fans from there. You don't need a separate website. You don't need a separate presence. All of this is from your on-chain profile that you control. With Lukso, we're really shaping a Web3 where creators own the rails. And instead of relying on external platforms to surface your content or surface your work, here, creators, you own the platform. You control your distribution, your identity, your monetization. So it's really a shift from being at the mercy of other people's algorithms and middlemen, and instead building your own sovereign, interoperable kind of creative economy. So, Lukso, I would say, I think we are paradigm changers. Like we're definitely at the forefront of a new paradigm emerging.
Fascinating. Thank you for a very comprehensive answer. Because I was going to ask, before we dive into more questions about LSPs and all, but you kind of went ahead and described it very, very effectively before we even touched upon that. Let's continue on with the questions. One of the most exciting things about Lukso is its introduction of LSP standards, which power universal profiles, NFTs 2.0, and programmable ownership. Can you explain how these standards differ from Ethereum's ERC standards, and why are they better suited for digital identity, creative economies, and interoperability across multiple applications?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a good follow-up question because LSP standards are what make Lukso fundamentally different. At its core, Lukso is a clone of Ethereum 2.0. We're actually following the Ethereum roadmap right behind. We're an identical ecosystem. So when developers look at the Ethereum mainnet and you think about deploying there, you don't have to make many changes to come and deploy on Lukso. The main changes are around how you interact with the user. So the LSPs really govern that, with ERC 725 really becoming LSP 0 in our ecosystem, and that provides metadata across, again, each user account, but this metadata standard then also extends out to our token standards. So in the case of our token standards, unlike ERC 20 or ERC 721, which can be rigid and are kind of single purpose, LSPs are designed to be modular. You can mix them, upgrade them, extend them. This allows for identities or assets that honestly can evolve and react based upon the rich metadata that developers or creators can add to them. This is really critical for real world use cases like social interactions, whether it be a ticketing system or a dynamic application that is going to kind of grow with you as the user. You can imagine a credit score, like an on-chain credit score that grew with user interactions, whether or not you were paying back your under collateralized or your over collateralized loans. And then in the future, maybe that serves the basis for an under collateralized loan. So these kind of dynamic applications that are responding to the metadata that is then stored about the profile or the assets themselves is super, super important. The LSPs are really built for identity and ownership. When the ERC 20 came up, and this is an important note that I got to add here, Fabian Vogelsteller, who is the co-initiator of the Lukso network, was actually a co-author of the ERC 20 standards. So he really all of the work that Lukso grew out from comes from understanding the limitations and the thought process around launching the ERC20 token. Now, the ERC20 token is limited. It's built for finance first. It came up at a time that we needed a token. We needed a token because people wanted to trade tokens. They wanted to be able to raise money by selling fractional ownership, or let's say fractional interest in some idea. But LSPs are built for people, right? It's not just built to sell an idea. They're built for people to exchange social capital and social value, for creators and digital ecosystems to really be built upon. Standards like LSP 0, which is again the universal profile, or the LSP3 metadata, which if you go to my universal profile, you'll see my profile name. You'll see metadata tags that I have assigned myself. I'm a developer. I'm an artist. I'm a parent. Whatever I want to put there, then that metadata becomes searchable and it becomes referenceable for any person and aggregated by any front end, which is really important because then you can build experiences that are tailored to people's self-identification. It's almost like you're self-opting into an algorithm. We also have LSP6, which is based on permissions, which enable full on-chain identity and permission management, something that ERCs, again, just simply weren't designed for because they weren't designed for the profile. They were designed simply for the token and the transfer of the value from a purely financial or economic sense. So we're really moving beyond that economic value and transfer, and we're raising up a level to, again, we're focused on the profile and the user. So really, these LSPs, they are programmable, interoperable, and future-proof. Right? And they're designed for the next decade of Web3, not the decade we just came from, but the decade that we're moving into now. We just celebrated 10 years of Ethereum. Our long-term vision is to say these LSPs are available for everyone. And we'd love to see them leak back into the greater Web3 space because LSPs treat identity and ownership as foundational primitives and not afterthoughts. I guess last thing I'll say is they enable a future where users and assets and apps, they're all natively interoperable. And like that is a huge step forward in this ecosystem.
Fascinating. I have a side question if nobody asked it. So, right, we're talking about the, universal profiles and how it works for, creators and artists. I would assume that the onboarding process and the entire system has to be very user-friendly. So it should be very easy for people to, go in there. Let's say I'm an artist. I barely touched any Web3 or crypto. How seamless would the process be for me, for example?
It's a great question. I mean, we want to reach towards being the Apple of Web3, where any person can go through and the interfaces feel super intuitive and you're kind of guided from one choice to the next and you arrive at an outcome that you're very comfortable with. Can I honestly say that we are there right now? No. However, it's about iterative improvements upon the interfaces that we have with the guiding principle that we should be built for the end user and not the person who is close to the code, right? Because not everyone is going to be writing code or feel comfortable there. So we are iteratively improving upon everything that we do, our interfaces with the single-minded choice in mind of the end user reaching towards being as easy to use as an Apple product, right? So internally, we kind of have this guidepost that we would like to reach towards being the Apple of blockchain. So we have actually a feature that we're coming up, we'll be launching next month called the token generator. Again, I'm using a colloquial term for that. We might call it something else. But every choice we've made in creating that interface is for the creator, the average person, the brand, the DAO to come together and be able to generate tokens that represent meaningful value in their ecosystem in a way that then they can manage it on their own. That includes managing the metadata, right? The stuff that makes the token interesting through an interface that is easy to use, understandable. Will we get it perfect out the gate? Probably not. But again, Apple didn't hit it perfect out the gate either. It's through constant iteration and user feedback cycles that we'll get there.
Great. Awesome. Definitely great analogy here. And I think it's something that's currently lacking in Web3 space. And, we are not early by any means at this point, so it's definitely time to make things convenient and user-friendly. That is for sure.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's continue with the questions. Universal profiles let users carry their identity, assets, and data across the app seamlessly. How do you see this transforming the way people interact with decentralized applications compared to the fragmented account-based systems we have today?
Okay. Yeah, right now, every D app in this kind of fragmented account-based system treats you like a stranger. You show up, you connect a wallet, then you have to re-verify your identity, reconfigure your settings. It's repetitive, it's impersonal, it's really siloed. With universal profiles, you have one on-chain profile that holds your digital identity, your assets, your metadata, your permissions. So anywhere you go in the Lukso ecosystem, that profile acts as your passport and you are immediately recognized. It's kind of cool, right? So on the Lukso network, if you sign in with the StealthEX account, it's going to represent your avatar image. It's going to represent a header image if you supplied one. You could even configure the permissions to know if you like light or dark mode, if you prefer a certain font. There's like basically an infinite level of customizability that there is potential for. Right now, like customizing light or dark mode or your font, there hasn't been an interface built with that. Universal Everything doesn't have that customization. However, nothing stops a developer from building a front end that allows that, right? Storing that custom metadata and allowing for it right now. So there's actually, like I would say, a huge degree of flexibility there because your identity, which is not just the information that sums you, like it's not just the number in your bank account, right? Your identity is something much larger than that, and it goes with you everywhere in this ecosystem. So again, you have apps that can adapt to you. Instead of re-entering data, the D app can instantly understand who you are. And then beyond wallets, really, universal profiles, they're smart social accounts. They're reactive. They're upgradable, and you can even embed logic that can make users active participants, not just wallet addresses. So, for an example, we have LSP1. I'm just going to mention this now. It's another standard that allows for reactivity to on-chain events. So in theory, when paired with another standard, we have LSP26, which is an on-chain follower system. If the StealthEX account was online and you had StealthEX tokens, that were like membership tokens, let's say, you wanted to reward people with a little thank you, for being connected as an online follower, you could, use LSP1 to make it so every time someone follows you as an on-chain account, you could then automatically drop them back a token that says thank you. And all of this is done on-chain. And that is just the tip of the iceberg. So really, we're moving from Web3, from these disconnected tools and this fragmented experience, to user-first network, where that identity becomes the anchor. And then as developers, you can reach into building creative experiences that kind of scale across all interactions or all experiences that encompass really the footprint that you're trying to have as an organization on chain. And then as a user, you can then move in the direction that you want to go with your full profile, your full social graph, to the areas of on-chain experience where your community lives.
Great. Awesome. Let's kind of segue into the next one. For many newcomers, the requirement to buy a native token just to pay gas fees counterintuitive and discouraging. With LSP25 enabling gasless transactions, how transformative do you see this being for mainstream adoption, especially for users who just want to interact without worrying about technical barriers?
When Lukso was initiated, this idea of a relayer was like super novel, right? Because everyone, in order to start interacting with an on-chain account, you needed to go to an exchange, you needed to get a gas token. This became a huge technical barrier for people who wanted to get involved. Right now, I think that idea is catching hold wider across the entire cryptocurrency space, because the user is just not going to hop these hurdles, right? Like my mom is not going to go to an exchange, open an exchange account, go through KYC, fund their exchange wallet, buy the gas token, send the gas token to the network. If you're a layer 2, then bridge the token over there. It's like way too many friggin' steps. So when we, again, as a guidepost, when Lukso was initiated, it was with this idea that we have to strip that complexity out for the user. So with LSP 25, which is a relayer, which sits at the basis of a kind of relayers on the Lukso network, developers or really any third parties, you can actually sponsor transactions. So this could be anyone. Right now, there's a Lukso relayer that every universal profile created through myuniversalprofile.cloud gets a certain quota each month that you can interact on chain without ever needing to fund your wallet with gas tokens. However, it's not because it's standardized. We're not the only ones who will ever run relayers. Any person could build a business model around being a relayer. So, in theory, if you're an advertiser, you could do the whole, watch a video, you get some gas tokens. You could really incentivize many, many ways on how to do this. It's really up to your creative brain. But with that relayer in place, it allows for those smooth app-like experiences that people expect from Web 2. This enables DApps to just feel like normal apps. And when combined with some of our other technology, not even just our technology, but technology that exists out there, when combined with passkey technology or an in-app browser, you can even abstract the transaction itself away from the user interface, and all you're doing is clicking and the confirmation is happening in the background. So this would remove the pop-up of the extension and the management, really the mental friction that gets in the way of the user using the ecosystem to its full potential, to use the technology to its full potential. And this unlocks real onboarding at scale. So brands, creators, builders can onboard non-native crypto audiences without asking them to go buy tokens first, like I said, because again, that's a huge obstacle for the users in sectors like gaming or fashion or social networks or just general creator apps if you're an artist trying to sell what you need. So LSP 25 really transforms the user journey from crypto first to experience first. And that's a critical shift that is kind of happening across the entire industry right now, but that's how we're going to get the next, million, 10 million, 100 million, billion users into Web3.
Yes, you are very right with the gas tokens. I mean, I've been in crypto for God knows how long, and to this day, I sometimes forget that I need to send something to somebody, and I'm all out of, Ethereum or, Polygon, whatever, and I'm just God damn it, and I have to figure out the way to get some of that native token so I can just send someone USDT or whatnot. So it's still a pain point to this day, even for crypto savvy users. But then for the newcomers, it's obviously a huge barrier, as you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Agreed.
All right, we have some more questions left. How does Lukso integration of both on-chain and off-chain data contribute to its ability to offer precise insights into user behaviors and digital assets? Could you elaborate on the specific algorithms or technologies used to achieve this level of detail?
That is a great question. So having the data available allows developers to build experiences that you just haven't seen yet or meaningfully interacted with in other places in blockchain. There's a project that was launched called Profile Jump on the Lukso blockchain. And what it does is it literally just aggregates all of this on-chain data tracked about profiles and then allows you to kind of dig in. It's like a giant dashboard for a really comprehensive indexer, if you know what that is. What's super cool about that is it gives you insights into the network that you just didn't have before. It becomes almost like a social explorer for the chain, where before you could go to Etherscan and you could try to figure out who the token holders are. You could try to figure out if you're connected to someone else, maybe you own a token and I own a token and we have something in common, but we're only represented by our address and I don't know anything about you. now I might be able to go there and see that, hey, we both hold this token that is a creator token for an artist that we're both fans of. Oh my God, we both also are DJs or developers, or, insert your favorite metadata tag there. And suddenly this social graph becomes considerably more expressive, richer, meaningful to the user. So really, the on-chain data that we're tracking about people is in a metadata form. So it's uber flexible. You can write almost anything into this on-chain storage because we have a metadata standard LSP2 that allows for this incredible flexibility with how we're tracking data about the profile. That's metadata, right? The off-chain data becomes really anything that you want because it can then be referenced in that standard. So the off-chain data that you're tracking can be as varied as you want to make it. And again, some people will think of off-chain data as like your passport number or your medical records, and that might be too intrusive, right, for really where we sit as an industry right now. So instead of thinking of it from this hard identity perspective, we want to look at it from this soft identity perspective, where we're more concerned with how users relate to one another versus like some proof of who you are and what you do, because ZK technology is going to be needed to really bring that on chain, and that's going to take a little bit more thought. Instead, really, when we're thinking about algorithms or we're thinking about this on-chain, off-chain data dance, we want to think about it in this let's say hybrid approach, which then is making Lukso really just more than this stale ledger of token balances. Instead, it becomes that living, searchable graph of digital identity and ownership, and that's going to unlock really precise discovery and social insights and trustable interactions for users who are really trying to use the blockchain for something other than the casino games that have, I think, in some ways undermined the efficacy of this entire industry. So I think most of the applications that we're seeing, early applications we're seeing on Lukso, lean into, and what I would love to see future applications really embrace would be smarter applications that index this data to expose these meaningful connections that allow users to self-identity, self-choose from an algorithm standpoint, right? Like, however I choose to expose my information to the blockchain is how I'm going to be seen from the algorithm standpoint. So if I build a profile that is a gaming profile, then I should be able to curate how algorithms see me, because I have self-sovereign control of what information I'm choosing to expose to that profile. And there's nothing that stops a user in that soft identity sense from then creating a separate profile that maybe is a little bit more tailored to a different domain in their life. Like, I might have the Craig profile that's my gaming profile, and then I might have the Craig profile that is my more financial profile, where I'm going to maybe be reaching into like a lending platform and trying to go for an under collateralized loan with a social reputation score in the future. And those two identities I might want to be separate, right, from one another, because I want to opt in algorithmically, or opt into an algorithm that meets the tailored needs of those two different facets of my life, right? So, like, again, this is an experience that we haven't seen yet on blockchain. It's a really interesting experiment, and that's where we're reaching into right now. So we obviously have our indexers that we're running in the background for on-chain discovery of profiles, but as users that are developers come online and they start to experiment in our ecosystem, I would love to see those people, and it's really our vision, those people develop let's say non-biased algorithms that preference the user and are not extractive at the end of the day. So I think my answer here is, like, we're built to be decentralized and flexible. And as a developer, you can grab hold of that tooling to build controls that really, again, benefit the end user. And as a user, you're not a slave to the person building something on the backside, because you are always in control of what information you expose to the chain.
Fascinating. Let's continue on with the questions.
Yeah, sure.
How does the collaboration between StealthEX and Lukso leverage the recent Lux listing to expand the token's liquidity, and what strategic partnerships might further accelerate its integration into global crypto exchanges?
Okay, that's a great question. All right, so the StealthEX integration is great because it enables like immediate no custody swaps for Lux without registration. So StealthEX really lowers the barrier to entry for the user to our ecosystem, helps us boost liquidity while welcoming new users into the creative, identity-focused world that is Luxo. But for us, this is only just a starting point. We actually have a pretty big announcement on deck today. I believe it should come shortly, which will be the first bridge between Luxo and Ethereum mainnet, which will then open up opportunities for people to get involved in this bi-directional way in our ecosystem. Because up until this moment, we have been kind of an island without good routes of transportation to it. But now our creative island is really open for all comers, and hopefully we can leak our creativity back towards Ethereum mainnet. And people who are interested in playing around now have greater access to universal profiles in our ecosystem. So that's actually a really big thing that is coming literally today. Just keep your eyes peeled. In parallel, we're going to look to expand access now through institutional partnerships, like we just announced with Crypto.com as our institutional custodian for the Lux token. And I think, as this continues to evolve, we'll just keep accelerating growth in our ecosystem by leaning into willing developers and willing creators that have an open mind and want to come play in our playground, because it's a kind, welcoming place with a community that is willing to support anyone with a good idea.
Awesome, and thank you for kind of pointing it out, what we do at StealthEX, removing those barriers to entry and, allowing for easy cross-chain swaps is what we do basically. And we do have a lot of people, and we work with a lot of projects like Lukso. For example, I have Ethereum on my MetaMask, or I have, Bitcoin on a centralized exchange, but I want to get involved with any projects such as Lukso. You can just use us. You don't have to bother with any complex bridging. I don't even remember last time I've bridged anything, because it's just so 2016 for me at this point. I don't want to bother with the slippage and everything. It's fine for the time being and for its own purpose. But if you want to, mass adoption, it's definitely not the way to move forward. While you try to onboard, especially traditional Web2 users, or not even Web2 users, or, creators, or people who are not very tech savvy, so to speak. All right. We got 3 questions left, and then we will get some live ones from the users.
Sounds good to me.
With universal profiles already live since November 23 and over 20,000 created by mid-24, how are you measuring real-world adoption? Any standout use cases?
Great question. It's absolutely a great question, right? Because yes, we quoted numbers, but numbers alone aren't the full story, because like you said, it's how people are using them. So how we're measuring some of our, how are we benchmarking this? One of those would be how profiles are publishing metadata and or holding assets and or reacting to content, what mini apps are being deployed, how profiles are transacting with one another. All of this tells us whether users are exploring universal profiles at a deeper level, or if they're just minting and forgetting, right? Like I've minted an asset and I went away tomorrow. We've seen some really interesting experiments. We have one experiment that I'll mention is called Universal Grave. I mentioned LSP1 earlier in this talk. it's a very successful and interesting experiment. Again, it's experimental, but what this does is it acts like a spam box on your profile. So one of the problems with DOAs is anyone can dust your account at any time with a scam token, and then you don't know if you can interact with it because you don't know if it's safe, or you just don't support the mission of that token and you don't want it in your account. Through LSP1 in the Universal Grave, all of any asset that you send to me is redirected to this spam box. And it's funny. It's called the Grave, right? And it's got little ghosts on it, and zombies. But it's really powerful technology. And the only way that this asset comes back is if I go there and I whitelist that address. So I have full control as to whether or not I want an asset to show up in my profile. When we talk about success, we want to look at how standards are being leveraged. And that right there is a use case which leverages our standards and shows just the tip of the iceberg of what is possible in our ecosystem. Like before, I mentioned Profile Jump, another interesting experiment, which is, like I said, almost like a social block explorer. Instead of going to Etherscan to try to figure out information about holders, or other addresses that are on the network, Profile Jump is literally surfacing right now we have over 33,000 profiles, all 33,000 profiles, and how they're choosing to express themselves on our network. So this is, again, like I said, self-sovereign identity through user opt-in, with their information sharing. So again, Profile Jump is another interesting example of using our metadata standards in a way that you just will not find anywhere other than Lukso. So when we think about success, we want to look at those types of experiences, those types of applications that are showing what's possible here versus what's not possible in other places. We also want to look at creator activity. So through platforms like Universal Everything, we're observing creators embedding mini apps into their profiles, as well as creating engaging mini apps, that are made out there. I deployed a simple mini app. It goes back to like MySpace's top 8, where you used to have to choose your top 8 friends. I put one out there as like choose your top 6. It makes no money. It actually costs me money to run, but I thought it was just fun because it again goes through, it adds this like fun social activity of the space where people are coming and trying to discover who you're connected to. The more applications we see underneath profiles, the more varied they are, the more experimental they are, the more we know we're doing a good job, because we then have the contact points for developers in the community who are experimenting, and then we get user feedback because we're trying to build an ecosystem here and not just one application, right? That we're very focused on creator activity in all facets. And then that goes all the way down to then the on-chain interactions that are associated with that. So how is value then being transferred between the participants in our ecosystem? So how is not only financial capital through maybe a meme coin, but how is social capital through collecting collecting own, what would I want to say? I want to use the word like proof of participation, badges. But like that's a more conceptual idea versus active thing that's going on right now. But like, I want to be able to go there and see, did you participate in the same events as me? From a network perspective, when we're measuring growth and success, we're going to see how our users are connected. So again, if you're seeing a profile that just has an asset on there and is not engaging with anyone, that is not successful. What we want to see is universal profiles that are highly connected in a very lively social graph, because that is showing that there is real activity on chain. And that's really what we're looking for. And we actually have the follower standard LSP 26, which gives us a little bit of an insight there, because again, that is like a decentralized on-chain registry of accounts that are connected to one another. So these are, I guess, I'm giving you an insight into the story, but I can't possibly give you the full story because, we've got a highly varied group of founders and creators that are looking across a very wide range of possibilities and use cases. If I'm going to highlight one more, I'll highlight Musta. Musta is really looking at tokenizing time for experiences. So they just did an entire, it's like a real world asset, timeshare where they just had a yacht floating around the Mediterranean for over a month. And, it allows users to potentially buy into a real world asset and experience the joys of owning the real world asset without having the headaches of all of the, let's say management costs associated with it or the time that comes with it. And what layers on top of that would be then like, if you have this tokenized real world asset system, that Musta is looking into where time is tokenized, then how do those tokens then transfer to experiences when the Musta yacht pulls into a port of call? Are these tokens then traded in the town, that port of call? Can they be used for an Airbnb style booking at a hotel in that port of call? That is actually being built right now. It's actually in its beta stage and it's live. And it's really cool because it's identity bound ownership where the real world asset itself has a universal profile. So even something as mundane as a service record for a yacht or a boat can be maintained verifiably via the metadata attached to the universal profile, which is super cool, right? So, ultimately, universal profiles really are just becoming, as we're looking into it, we want to say like it's becoming, don't just look at the number of profiles. Instead, you really got to look at how they're becoming more than accounts. They're expressing things that we haven't seen before in the greater cryptocurrency space. Each one of these accounts we're measuring, are they programmable? Are they expressive digital identities? Are they serving some purpose that is touching at the core of what we're trying to see, which is real world Web3 adoption?
Awesome, great. That MySpace analogy hits hard if you're over 30. Just
for sure.
All right, we have 2 more questions left, and then we can take some live ones. With the emphasis on the new Web3, how is Lukso planning to integrate with emerging trends like decentralized AI or a metaverse to position itself beyond just Ethereum tooling compatibility?
No, that's a great question. Okay. I would say universal profiles are AI ready identity infrastructure, right? Because these profiles come with the key manager built in, which means that profiles can hold permissions and interact autonomously, but in a stratified way, in a limited way, right? So like instead of having to build an entire infrastructure around an EOA account to allow an agent to interact without stealing your money or doing something, right? Like removing your access to your private key, LSP6, which is our key manager, allows for these permission sets to be added to the profile so the agent can inhabit a profile, but you can remain the super admin over that profile yourself. So if Craig had Craig AI, Craig could be the super admin of Craig AI, but could still allow that AI to then go and live a fully on-chain life in an expressive way. And there are projects in our ecosystem that are reaching towards that right now. Our standards, because we have a whole series of metadata standards like LSP3 I mentioned before, which is your profile metadata, again, avatar image, your banner image for your account, a description, links, metadata tags. Because all of that is standardized, it makes it really machine friendly. It turns Lukso into an AI friendly environment where algorithms can like understand the context for these AI accounts, and all of these social signals associated with the AI accounts can all be natively processed on chain, which is kind of cool. really I would say Luxo kind of becomes the glue layer between maybe disconnected metaverses that are all going to leverage AI and inside them. So, if you're a gaming person, you definitely see, where the NPCs or AI agents are interacting with inside of games already. And because Luxo, like I said, with the universal profiles can act as a vessel for each one of these identities, it can glue together, maybe more of the creative aspect of games with a decentralized, trustless, infrastructure layer that allows all of this stuff to come together, and for these AI things to really or AI agents to really flourish. Luxo, I guess it isn't just compatible with the future. It's really designed for it. Again, a co-initiator, Fabian Vogelsteller, he's huge into VR, has been for a long time. And that's what got me hooked back in the day was, this idea that when I myself use VR, if I had a decentralized layer for all of my assets going back all the way. Think of Vitalik. One of the reasons that he came up with Ethereum is he was pissed that he lost a Warcraft item. If all of that can be held trustlessly in my universal profile, and if I had agents that were even playing the game on my behalf in a play to earn game, that I had control over, but all of those assets were programmable, interoperable, but remained under my super admin control, like this becomes a perfect world for AIs to go and live rich on-chain lives independent of us. I mean, we're constrained by time as humans, right? As humans, I only have so much time out of the day to live in the digital world other than, right? I have to leave here to eat, sleep, go to the bathroom, be nice to people that I love, but AI can live in their digital world in a native way. We just have to provide the rails for it. And I think Universal Profiles and Luxo can provide those rails.
Very interesting take. Yeah, I don't think we've seen a very good Web3 gaming experience so far. Most of those projects are just cash grabs realistically. And there's just a big debate whether Web3 is even suitable for, any gaming applications, that actually not just cash grabs, but actually have very good, value behind it. But yeah, definitely interesting to see how this kind of metaverse / gaming situation involves. And of course, AI is there already everywhere pretty much. There's no other way around it. Mm-hmm. Okay. We got last question left, and then we got some time to get live ones.
Sure.
What is your current roadmap status? Has Luxo been successful in reaching all your roadmap targets? Can you give a brief roadmap update?
Sure, I'll give it to you. I would say our roadmap has been winding, right? Like it has not been a straight line. There for a project that was initiated in 2019, 2020, there's the best laid plans of mice and men, to use that cliche, or to use another cliche, life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. And along the way, we've definitely hit some bumps in the road because we're trying to create a future that has not yet been created, right? Like all of the pain that came with getting Bitcoin adopted or getting Ethereum adopted, sometimes we forget that took a long time. And when Bitcoin first came up, it was for peer-to-peer payments, and nobody thinks of it that way anymore. We think of it as instead digital gold, with even Chairman Jerome Powell calling it such very recently. And with Ethereum, we called it the world computer. And now we don't think of it that way at all. Instead, it's being thought of as this trustless settlement layer for financial rails. With Luxo, when it was first posed, the universal profile was always there. Right. It was always sitting in the background, but it was marketed as like a very fashion forward chain, because it does have large potentials for real world assets. That potential still exists, but over time, the true value proposition of the network has really emerged. And that is around this, like I said, profile centric experience that brings the user to the forefront. So like I said, it's been a winding roadmap. It's been a journey, let's say. Up to this point, we have delivered mainnet, universal profile launch. Like I said, even as of today, we'll deliver another technical update to our ecosystem. Looking forward from where we are today into the future, we are building fast around full circle moments where users can truly use our technology in a real world sense, meaning you're bringing this into your everyday life. So if you're an event owner, let's say you are a club owner, or you're an event promoter, or you are an artist, or you're a person who attends one of these events. Every piece of that can be managed from our application. And that's what we're reaching towards in the next quarter of this year, with a lot of developments coming online. So this means from creating the tickets to collecting the payments to verifying the tickets at the door, all of this is done from the creator standpoint. If you're the DJ or you're the artist, you have connection to every person who bought that ticket, or bought that experience through the verifiability of blockchain interactions. If you're the event promoter, all of the payments can be handled in a trustless and permissionless way. If you're the club owner, you can be assured that the event promoter has all of the tools necessary to reach a large audience using universal profile, even as a distribution platform for marketing content. So this is where we're reaching on our roadmap right now. What we really see through the last quarter of this year going into the beginning of 2026 is bringing the vision of the Lukso network as truly a valuable tool for real world people, not just crypto degens, bringing that to the market. So that's what we're reaching into right now.
Awesome, great. Yeah, roadmap is never straight. Realistically, I don't think I've seen too many projects that live by that. It's more of a general direction. Anyways, let's get some live questions in from somebody who has been here since the very beginning. Let me see this person. Marilyn, adding you as a speaker. Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Thank you very much for inviting me up to. So my question is regarding the gas efficiency and execution. Given that cross-chain bridging often introduce high gas cost, how does the Solidity package execution to make token representation efficient and scalable for frequent use? And also, how is state consistency guaranteed between Ethereum and Lukso when bridging tokens, especially in cases of network congestion or reorgs that might affect finality? Thank you.
Those are great questions. That might be outside the scope of what I deal with on a daily basis, because we don't, in my role, or really the development team at Lukso, we don't build bridges. We use bridges if they exist. So a lot of the questions around, finality, state finality, or, let's call it just security of bridges in general, and how they operate, that would be a question that would be directly applicable to someone who is building a bridge. That's what I would say. That's the part of the question I heard. There might be more in that question, but if we talk about gas costs moving across the bridge as well, that's going to be determined by network congestion on either side of the bridge. So just in a very generic sense, if you were moving from any chain over to Ethereum mainnet, depending upon the gas congestion at the time of the transaction would be more or less expensive, right? And then depending upon the network that you're originating from, again, the same would apply. So in the counter sense. So Yeah, that would be my answer to that one there. Again, we're not in the business of building bridges. We're in the business of using bridges, right? Or natively swapping tokens on an exchange like StealthEX so you can avoid bridges altogether.
Wow.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Marilyn, for the question.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, let's get one more in. Let's see. Who do we have here? Hey, this person has been here since the very beginning.
Can't wait.
It's not requesting it. Okay. This guy has been here since the... Yeah, I'm just trying to pick people who has been here
Sure.
the entire time. Lickminto, you can speak now.
Thank you for the chance. Can I ask my question?
Sure.
Okay. My question is technology behind tokens and how do they plan to utilize it to create a sustainable and scalable ecosystem for their users while also ensuring the security and transparency of transaction within the network?
So the question, let me clarify. How do we intend to use the Lux token or just tokens in general?
Hello?
Hello, I was just trying to get clarification on the question. Are we talking the native token or tokens in general?
Token in general.
Okay. Yeah, just tokens in general on our ecosystem, they are meant to be as varied as the user wishes, meaning the creator wishes them to be. So again, we're trying to expand out beyond the simple transfer of financial value with a token. Even something like the, let's call it the NFT bubble in 2021, where so many PFPs were sold. At the end of the day, the major use case that we saw there was just speculating on potential values in the future or potential valuations in the future. Some of those NFTs carried real creator art and had a soul. I think that we're looking to expose that on the Lukso network, and we're looking to expose the creator transparently to the collector. So there's a true line of ownership and provenance between the creator and the collector. Because if you're a creator that has talent, that truly is trying to distribute their art to a wider global audience, we want there to be provenance. We want to connect you with your audience so that, again, if I like the art you produce, there's a good chance I might like a second piece of art you produce or want to buy a ticket to your show or support you in some way. So we're trying to create that, like I said, provenance, but also then because it's a blockchain, this is public information. It's also then queryable, indexable for other people to use, right? So if I'm someone who just wishes to then connect all of the people who are connected and show it in a transparent way because I want to surface who the most popular artists are to potential investors in the future who might want to be, or not investors, call them patrons of the arts, then maybe I want to show these potential patrons who would be creators that are doing well or creators that are not doing well, that maybe there's an opportunity to help them out. There's lots of opportunities here with tokens when we think about how to expand outside of the simple transfers of financial value. So our ecosystem has, again, two major token standards, LSP 7 and LSP 8. We also have the native token Lux, but everyone understands that it's a commodity gas token for the network. However, with LSP 7 and LSP 8, there's a wide range of possibilities for the application of those tokens. And it's through the trustless nature of a blockchain asset that so many composable experiences can be built. And that's what we're reaching towards. We're reaching towards providing a varied experience for the tokenization of real value as well as social value within our network, and then allowing for the creative minds that may have not even thought about building the product yet to come and build a product that will bring real value to the people who are out there creating every day.
Awesome answer. Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Okay, my question is, do you have an ambassador program?
We do have an ambassador program. Our ambassador program is called the Luminaries. It's run by our community lead, our head of community, Natasha Fawn. And right now we just onboarded our second cohort of ambassadors, but I'm sure that we'll reach into having a third cohort in the near future. But Fawn is our community contact for that.
Okay, thank you so much.
No problem.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody, for the questions. Thank you, Craig, for this very comprehensive, I'd say, intro to Lukso. And for those who missing today's session, we will be posting recaps so everyone can catch up later down the line. Before we wrap this up, do you want to add something? A closing statement, so to speak?
I'll give a closing statement. Sure. My closing statement is thank you so much for having us on, for the valuable partnership, that's just launched. It's been really generous with your time today. Thank you to the entire StealthEX community for the questions that you posed. Hopefully you learned something today. We're a very friendly community. You can engage with almost anyone in our community and they'd be more than happy to give you a walkthrough. So if you can tie into anybody in the audience today, I'm sure you'll have a positive experience. It costs you nothing to create a universal profile. So you can head on over to universaleverything.io, create a profile right there and get yourself started in the ecosystem. Again, completely gasless experience for you to start. So, give it a shot, see what you think, and don't be a stranger. Feel free to reach out.
Awesome. Thank you, Craig. Thank you for joining today. It was a very educational session for me, at least, for sure. And of course, we're always happy to collaborate and, partner and do more things with you guys. Let's stay in touch, and thank you for today's session. Let's give the man a round of applause. Alrighty. Well, have a great rest of your day, evening, morning, whichever part of this world you are in.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Have a good one.
Okay.